We live in an age where it's faster to communicate than ever before, but in an age of texting, email, and social media, do you ever wonder what your final message will be? Here are 10 chilling final messages before death. Number 10 is Bill Hurst. Cave diving can be an extremely dangerous sport, considering that it mixes two already moderately dangerous hobbies together. One of the US's most popular cave diving locations sits under Peacock Springs State Park in Suwannee County, Florida. It's here that several underwater cave systems reside, 100 feet underground. In August of 1976, a veteran cave diver and diving instructor, Bill Hurst, put on his gear and headed down into the Peacock 3 caves. This is one of the most difficult routes to explore due to its complicated tunnels, as well as the low visibility through the layers of fine silt that happen to float around. Hurst took a wrong turn during his expedition and became very confused. Realizing that his tank wouldn't have enough air for him to escape in time, he wrote his final message. Hurst was found just a few hundred yards away from the surface with the words, "I got lost. Tell my wife and kids I love them very much," written on his diving slate. Number 9 is Chris Kyle. Famous US Army sniper Chris Kyle was a deadly force to be reckoned with when he had a gun in his hands. He has an official kill count of 160 and was highly respected by his military peers who nicknamed him the Legend and the Myth. However, on February 2nd, 2013, 38-year-old Kyle and his friend Chad Littlefield took another veteran, Eddie Ray Routh, to a shooting range in Erath County, Texas. The trip was supposed to be therapeutic for 25-year-old Routh, who was suffering from PTSD and was diagnosed with schizophrenia. On the way to the range, Kyle texted Littlefield, who was sitting right next to him, about Routh, who was sitting in the back. The text read as follows: "This dude is straight up nuts." Though it may have seemed like a joke at the time, Kyle was spot on. At the range, Routh walked up directly behind them and opened fire, killing both the distinguished military veterans and making that text Kyle's final message. Number 8 is Eloise Perry. On April 12, 2015, 21-year-old Eloise Perry checked herself into a hospital in Shrewsbury, England, after ingesting too many of the slimming diet pills that she had bought. The pills contained an extremely poisonous chemical called dinitrophenol, or DNP, which, when taken in excess, can cause human metabolism to skyrocket and essentially burn your body internally. Eloise had many body image issues leading up to her decision to take the dietary pills, and she ended up paying dearly for the decision. After her hospitalization, she sent texts to one of her university professors saying, and I quote, "I think I'm going to die. No one is known to survive if they vomit because of DNP. I'm so scared." She also added, "I'm so sorry for being so stupid. Thank you so much for everything. I never deserved it." Shortly after, Eloise succumbed to the poison's effects as hospital staff looked on, unable to treat her accidental overdose. Number 7 is Suriname Airways Flight 764. On June 7, 1989, the pilot and crew of Suriname Airways Flight 764 was attempting to land in heavy fog at the airport in Paramaribo, Suriname, while carrying 178 passengers and 9 crew members, including the members of the Surinamese soccer team. The captain decided that they would land using a signal that they knew was unreliable, and as they approached the runway, they ignored the onboard flight system's warnings, telling them that they were close to impact. The plane descended too early and came in low, with the plane's black box recording capturing the flight engineer's plea with the captain to pull up just before striking a tree with one of their engines. Again, in their final moments, the engineer directs him to pull up, but immediately loses hope, saying, "That's it, I'm dead." His last words were directly followed by the plane's inversion and crash, killing 176 aboard, with only 11 of the passengers surviving. Number 6 is Lupe Velez. Lupe Velez was a well-known Mexican and American film actress, as well as a performer who starred in films throughout the 20s, 30s, and 40s. In September of 1944, Velez discovered that she had become pregnant with the child of her new boyfriend, a young Austrian actor named Harold Raymond, and 2 months later she announced their engagement. But typical to Velez's past relationships, things went downhill fast, and on December 10th, she had broken up with Raymond. Just 3 days later, she went out for dinner with her 2 friends and confided to them that she would rather kill herself than have an abortion. The next morning, on December 14th, 1944, 36-year-old Velez took 75 sleeping pills and passed away in her Glendale, California home. And chillingly, she left a note for Raymond, which read as follows: "To Harold, may God forgive you and forgive me too, but I prefer to take my life away and our babies before I bring him with shame or killing him." Number 5 is Shari Faye Smith. On May 31st, 1985, 17-year-old Shari Faye Smith was kidnapped from her family's driveway in Lexington, South Carolina by 37-year-old Larry Jean Bell. Larry kept her prisoner for 12 hours, performing horrible acts on her and eventually forcing her to write her own last will and testament before he killed her. In the 5 days that followed her abduction, Bell would call her family to taunt them and describe what he did to her, saying that she was still alive. Then, on the 5th day, he called and told them where they could find the body. Her last will was also found and contained Shari's brave final message to her family. In it, she wrote, "I know y'all love me and will miss me very much, but if you stick together like we always did, y'all can do it." Even in knowing that she would never survive the ordeal, she remained thoughtful and comforting to her own family through the inevitable tragedy. Number 4 is Randy Scott. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, Randy Scott was working on the 84th floor of the World Trade Center when one of the hijacked flights flew into the building 2 floors away from him. The damage and debris trapped Scott and 11 of his co-workers on their floor with no methods of communication with rescuers. In his desperation, the injured man wrote down 84th floor West office, 12 people trapped. He wrote it on a scrap piece of paper and dropped it out the window to the streets below. Amidst the terror in the streets, someone actually managed to find the note and handed it to a guard at the Federal Reserve Bank. As the guard grabbed his radio to forward the message, he watched in horror as the tower collapsed. 10 years later, a small black bloodstain on the note was tested for DNA, matching it to Scott, whose family had all previously believed that he was killed instantly and without pain when the plane hit the tower. A morbid and painful end for the memory of a loved one. Number 3 is Chris Harper Mercer. On October 1st, 2015, 26-year-old Chris Harper Mercer walked into Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, Oregon, with 5 handguns and a bulletproof vest and shot 9 people to death. However, the day before Chris had committed the mass shooting, he was browsing the anonymous forum site 4chan. There, he decided to post a cryptic warning to other users, saying, "Some of you guys are alright. Don't go to school tomorrow if you are in the Northwest." Little did anyone know that this message would be an invaluable piece of advice to the students of Umpqua College. The shooting was Oregon's worst since 1887, with 10 total fatalities, including Chris, who had turned the gun on himself after he was wounded in a firefight with detectives. 9 other students suffered gunshot injuries, but actually survived the ordeal. In the aftermath, 4chan users became a lot more cautious regarding ominous messages such as this. Number 2 is Robert Dean. On November 8, 2014, Robert Dean shot and killed his two sons, 7-year-old Jacob and 2-year-old Austin, in a bathtub in his house in Reno, Nevada. Before he put the revolver to his own head, he sent a text message to his recently estranged wife and the mother of his children, Ashley Dean. The message that she received not long after leaving their house on a road trip with her girlfriend read, "The boys are dead and so am I." Rob suffered from a long history of depression and anger issues, and he was upset about their impending divorce. In a violent state of rage, he decided to utterly destroy Ashley in the worst way possible. Upon returning to Reno, she was given the news at the station that her ex didn't send the message as a sick joke. It was real. It's difficult to imagine anything more horrible than receiving a message like that. And number 1 is Ray Andress. In the early morning of May 7th, 1964, Pacific Airlines Flight 773 took off from Stockton, California en route to San Francisco, with 44 people on board, including crew. One of the passengers was a former 1960 Summer Olympics sailing team member for the Philippines, who was deeply depressed over his relationship and financial issues. Before 27-year-old Francisco Gonzalez had boarded the plane, he somehow managed to purchase and smuggle on board a loaded Smith & Wesson revolver with him, and had told several people at the airport that he was suicidal. Shortly before the plane began procedures for landing in San Francisco, Gonzalez broke into the cockpit and shot Captain Ernest Clark, killing him instantly. He then shot and wounded 31-year-old co-pilot Ray Andress, who radioed air traffic control the final words, "I've been shot, we've been shot, oh my God, help." The plane nosedived into a hill, killing all 44 on board. And that's all for this episode. On the right, you'll find 2 of my most recent videos that you can press or click on your screen right now if you'd like to watch some more. And other than that, I will see you in the next video. Sweet dreams.